This Monday is going to be the first felony sentencing for a member of the insurrection. The Washington Post says prosecutors are asking for 18 months for one count of obstructing Congress. What kind of precedent will this case set, especially for defendants facing conspiracy or assault charges?
Given the number of cases that are pending, we're talking hundreds of people who have been arrested and will be charged. Even the first one means that it is a precedent-setting thing. Jail seems to be necessary, not just to send a message to all the other potential insurrectionists, but to keep us safe in the short term. So I think that 18 months seems like a very fair and actually lenient sentence. These are felonies that could end up causing someone to be found incarceratable for up to 3 to 5 years. The misdemeanors, of course, will be lesser penalties. But 18 months seems to be within the sentencing guidelines and is a good thing for the prosecutors to be asking for to protect all of us from future possible insurrections.
Well, Ryan, you reported on a rioter released from jail because he didn't know the difference between the Capitol and the White House.
Yes, I mean, ignorance is sort of going to be an ongoing theme here. We saw multiple cases where people were just confused where they were. There was an individual who was confused between the House and the Senate, but that wasn't quite as bad as some of the people who thought that they were at the White House when they were actually at the Capitol, of course. And it wouldn't make a lot of sense for them to storm the White House, which was controlled by Trump at that point. So, there's this. It's just sort of funny when we talk about this ongoing thing about people have legitimate concerns about the electoral vote count, and it's just like, when you look at the rhetoric that these people were using, they didn't have a very deep understanding of how the electoral process necessarily worked in a lot of cases, weren't really deep in the weeds here. So, I think it's just something to keep in mind when we hear these claims. The Paul Hodgkins sentencing tomorrow, I think, is going to be very important because his lawyer there has made a really interesting argument saying basically that the judge should take a lead from Abraham Lincoln, or at least what Abraham Lincoln planned to do after the Civil War, and sort of, forgive, I guess, the Confederates who traded against America. It's sort of an interesting position to sort of put his client in the position of, I suppose, Confederates in this case, but that's sort of what they're asking to do. They're saying that, to bring the country together, to unite, that this, they're asking the judge to sort of have some leniency here. And that's a really fascinating argument, and will be interesting to see how the judge hears that out, because it's a very political argument. It's not really based on the law. It's saying that, hey, this is a political thing. A lot of people are going to be really upset if you throw the book at this guy. So it'll be interesting to see what the judge does here.
Well, Jill, I would, of course, love to hear your thoughts on that argument. But I also want to ask you, MSNBC has obtained excerpts from the book I Alone Can Fix It, revealing that top generals feared former President Trump would attempt a coup and that he considered pardoning himself after the Capitol riot. Trump has refuted the reporting, of course. Could this book become evidence in the lawsuits against Trump?
Not so much the book as the people who said these things. They could be witnesses. As a former general counsel of the Army, I am completely trusting of the military people who would not follow an illegal order, would not participate in a coup against the United States. As to the argument that's being made that, forgive them just the way Lincoln might have forgiven the people who fought against the United States, we're in a very different situation where you need to make sure that this doesn't happen again. There hasn't been a war that was ended and sort of a treaty signed and somebody conceded the loss. This is an ongoing problem. And you mentioned the Sacramento people. This is another issue. And again, they're being held in jail on serious federal and state charges. And in order to stop this from happening in every state in our country, we need to send a message that this will not be tolerated. And we can't just let people off because they were mistaken. And to me, it's ludicrous to say, well, I thought I was in the White House. It doesn't matter. You were using violent means to enter a place that you were not supposed to be. And you can't allow that to happen. When you're beating up the Capitol Police, which is on tape, despite the man you interviewed or that was shown in the interview on your show, you need to keep that in mind. We saw it happen. Don't forget what we all saw with our own eyes.
Well, Ryan, speaking of what we all saw happen, the Select Committee on January 6th is going to hold its first hearing in 10 days, which is kind of unbelievable that it has taken us into late July for that to happen. There's going to be testimony from Metropolitan and Capitol Police officers. How much of this is about setting the record straight, and how much of it is actually about accountability?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the record is continuing to be set straight based upon a lot of these videos that have been being released. Body-worn cameras from the Metropolitan Police Department that are being used in a lot of these cases. Now, what they've put out so far is only the videos that have been used in detention hearings. But I would encourage, viewers to go and look at some of those videos, because you see starkly what happened that day. And it's actually interesting because a lot of these videos now are generating new leads for online sleuths who are looking around for a lot of who are sort of following and trying to track down a lot of these people who participated in the attack that day, and they'll see someone in a new video and they'll be able to flag that. And so as the government releases more of these videos, these outside organizations and sleuths that are sort of working on this are able to make a lot more connections, because the government's clearly struggling here just with the overwhelming nature of this case. It's a massive investigation, will be one of the largest investigations, if not the largest FBI investigation in terms of number of defendants charged, certainly, and the extent of the evidence that we have here in American history. So this is going to be something that's going to be with us for a very long time, certainly through 2020. 2024, it'll also continue to be an issue. This is going to be around for a very, very long time. We'll be reshaping, I think, American politics for a long time to come.
Joe, before I go, I do have to ask you which pin you chose for today and what it says about the stories we're talking about.
Well, it's directly related to the stories that you're talking about, which is they are go to jail, go directly to jail, do not stop anywhere else. They're basically Monopoly squares that were sent to me and reflect what I think the proper sentences should be for all of the domestic terrorists that are attacking our country right now and trying to undermine our democracy.